Welcome to OSM, Operation Safe Mode. Peace be with you. I am Father Roniel and I am filling in for Father John for today. Today, we have a special guest, me.
Hello everyone. Did Father Roniel do a great job introducing himself?
Yes.
It's my privilege to be with him today, and as you know, we are really trying to keep social distance. So how are we doing, Father?
Okay,
looks
okay,
pretty
perfect.
good to me. Pretty good to me. It's only 4 feet, but we're not afraid of each other. The opportunity that we wanted to take today with Father Roniel really was, we're overwhelmed. It's almost 2 years. You've been with us in August, it'll be 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, of course, has gotten to know you very well as their priest and as a pastor, especially in your writings through this Operation Safe Mode time of our lives. But everyone's always curious about us as priests. They want to know, how did we start our journey? So that's what I want to do today, is just kind of ask you a few questions and you could share with us your priestly journey. So when did you first start thinking about becoming a priest, and what were those steps that got you moving towards formation into priesthood?
Yeah, the very first time that I really, it came to me was when my grandmother was trying to point out to the priest, and then when I came with her to a church, and she told me that someday you will be like her, someday you will be like him, and I was so curious about it, and I think I like it because my grandmother liked it too. And it's always a beautiful thing to hear from my grandma's affirmations. When I see her smile and happy about me, about what I did, I'm also very, very proud of it, and I like that I would really like make my grandma very proud of me. And that's where I really started having, thinking of, that's a nice thing to be.
One of the things that is so awesome about your grandma and those in our lives who tell us that could be you someday, or that will be you someday, with real conviction and almost as matter of fact. I think that's what happens too often in families. I think parents are afraid, or grandparents are afraid to say, I want you to be a priest, or I want you to be like that. And now that you're a priest, it makes you very happy to honor her by that, because you know that she had that confidence in you from a little boy.
Yes, and the funny thing about it, Father John, was when my parents told me about it, that's the time that I started to doubt, and I would say, oh, I don't like it. Because it's my parents now telling me, like, I don't want that they will be the one to initiate it for me, but I want it that when I become a priest, it should be coming from my own conviction. And maybe my grandma was just an inspiration, and then my mother and my father's role was really to purify that vocation that I have, because I want to own that vocation. I don't want that it should be coming from them. But although they're encouraging me, but as it comes to me, it feels like they're really into it, and there's no doubting about it, and I don't want to be like that. I just have to be to make things like according to my own decision and according to my own finding out.
Right. So parents can make a suggestion or say, someday maybe you'll be a priest, or look, you could be a priest like him. They also have to be careful on that, because they don't want to make it as, if you do not become a priest, then I'm going to be disappointed in you. And that's a difficult role.
That's my fear, Father John. One of my fears. Yeah.
When I finally knew that I wanted to go to the seminary, I wrote a letter to my parents. I never spoke a moment to them or even asked them what they thought if I became a priest. But for that very same reason, I wanted to own it. Mm-hmm. And when I sent the letter to tell them, they were certainly happy, but I felt like I had that ownership you're talking about. It wasn't like, gee, do you think I should become a priest? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you start worrying, well, am I doing it for them, or do I own this?
There was a time in my formation, Father, it was on my 7th year of the seminary formation, where we were allowed to go out, or the seminary really sends us out for a whole year to let us experience also management, and we became teachers in a particular school. It's a Catholic school, and that was the time that I really had started to purify that vocation. I started to own it. I started to say, I think I want to be a priest, because it just feels like I'm not here. I'm not here. I want to be a priest. There's something more that I want to do, and although I appreciate being a teacher, it's a very noble vocation.
Sure.
But there really is something that I am looking for. It just fits for my own, and I think it answers the question when I became a priest, or at least when I am into this course of life already, that I am becoming a priest.
Now, what level of schooling did you actually begin to be in the seminary?
That was already in my second year in theology.
Okay, so when you were starting to think that about teaching, you were a teacher in your second year.
Yeah, second year in theology.
So you were already 7 years, so you started in high school.
No, like my first year, like the whole of my college was in the seminary.
Okay.
I did not have time to study college and outside. It was
Okay.
inside the seminary formation. So everything that I did was about seminary. So when I went out of that seminary structure, there I started to really purify. Am I really for this? Because all throughout my 7 years, I've been in the seminary, and there's no other way to question that. So that motivation. And when I went out, that's when I started to clarify things.
That's what a lot of dioceses offers young men now. After a period of time of seminary before ordination, they give them a pastoral year. Mm-hmm. And I think it's for that exact same reason, to purify. What does this mean to be a priest? Purify the intention of preaching the gospel. Because the seminary is a safe place.
Yes.
Everybody there wants to do the same thing, so you could kind of cruise right through without purifying that thought. So you had that opportunity. So when you came back to the seminary, how was it different for you when you entered back into seminary after being a teacher and recognizing that you had purified your intentions?
Like the motivation is really stronger and intensifying, and really when you are in the theology, and the formation is so very beautiful, and I mean, it's only in theology in my theology period that I was really into prayer, and that our priests who are assigned there are really very inspirational, and that's where I started really to more focus on the spirituality of my vocation. Because when you are in college, we were only talking about, most of the time, about philosophy and the subjects and the academics, and because it's college, and the whole thing is packaged in a way that there is academic, there is community, there is spirituality, and there's how do you call this one? Saka, we call it Saka. So these are the four elements of seminary formation, where really, like, we in the whole day we try to live in that routine, and so maybe the spirituality is a little bit not really intensified because of these other concerns.
Sure.
So when I was in theology, the first year was really about spirituality. We call it PEs. I forgot already the terms, but it's about focusing really on our spirituality and making sense of our experiences. We were given the techniques how to do all the exercises in prayer.
Right, yeah.
So those are very, very beautiful discoveries in me, and I really like it. And it feels like I am in honeymoon with the Lord in those times, that I really felt His presence. Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. We have a saying in the day when I was in the seminary, I'm sure you guys had the same saying, was that if you pray, you will stay. And the whole concept is that our spiritual life has to become an intimacy with Christ. And if we're going to be persona Christi, we have to take on Christ. And so it is a honeymoon, and it is a beautiful way to fall in love with him. So when did the thoughts of celibacy become an issue for you, or if you will, as you said, sometimes temptations come in a strange way, Satan trying to pull us away from our focus on Christ. Celibacy, that commitment, receiving that gift, is always a challenge. Did you find any real struggles in that, and when did that come into the formation part of your priesthood?
Like when I was already, I came back from the seminary, from my regency period, those 2 years that I was out. And good thing I did not have the issue outside when I was outside. But when I came back, there was a moment that I really got into, I felt it. I just felt it. I fell in love with this one. And then, but good thing is that we have a spiritual human formation. We call it the human formation, and it's so very open. It made us very open, and I poured out everything I felt during those times, and it took me 1 year to be able to overcome that crisis that I had in the seminary.
And I think that when you said about falling in love with him, I think that's how celibacy really works. It's not a substitute. It's not pushing away marriage as if it doesn't have the incredible value that you and I know it has. But it's being committed and making a lifetime love commitment to the Lord. And then, just like any good marriage, you're not looking anywhere else.
Yes, that's true, Father John.
So celibacy is that relationship that takes us into the intimacy of Christ, and once we fall in love with him, we're not distracted really by the other temptations and thoughts of being married and having children. Those are all things that you poured out of yourself in that time of that human formation. And then we got to ordination. What was your priestly ordination day like? What were your thoughts of? What was the excitement, and what was the thing that you remember the most about that day?
When I was ordained as a deacon, one of the things that struck me really was when I gave the communion to people, and I see different hands, and they're all like begging, and I can give it, and that really touched me very much, and I was crying when I was giving in the communion. And then when I was ordained as a priest, I know the preparation of the people because I was ordained in my own parish. And the reason being why we are ordained in our own parish, because it would help promote vocations, so that ordinations are not a common thing. So whenever it goes from parish to parish, the young people could have the opportunity to see it. But what is most wonderful about it was, one thing was I had a very beautiful preparation, because we had 3 days of being cloistered, like we are in the monk's place, and we had retreat there, and we do not get out of that place until we were paraded towards the church and ordained. We did not receive any visitors. And when I processed towards the altar, it was so beautiful, and there were so many people coming in. And I just said, "What did I do, Lord, to deserve all this?"
Right? Why me? In a good sense. Why are you disposing your grace on me? Yeah.
Yes, that's really very striking to me. I said, this is the wonder of God's grace. He chose this little kid before who used to come to this church, and was just so playful, and now here I am, and to minister the word, and people are so excited about it. like they were looking forward to it, and there were so many people who were in the church. So
In the ordination rite, the vocation director stands on our behalf, and he answers to the bishop that we're ready in those 4 pillars of formation, that we're ready to be ordained. We've completed our work and we're found worthy. But when you have your ordination with your parishioners in your home parish, their hearts and their souls are speaking that presentation to the bishop as well. We present this one who was just a little boy and playful in our midst, we present him as one of our own. Mm-hmm. And I can't even imagine what kind of joy that brought to all those people. You know, all of them probably were making some kind of claim on you too, you know. Mm-hmm. Well, I remember when but yes. How beautiful that must have been when you walked up that aisle through those people and knowing that they were not only supporting you, because we know that's important, mm-hmm. but supporting the role of church and priesthood, you know, and knowing that they're always going to give you those begging hands. How beautiful.
Yes, I always see connections, Father. Like when I went into the seminary, it was the first anniversary. That year was the first anniversary of our parish. Like it's almost like my age, our parish became our parish became a parish. Uh-huh. Like it almost like my age when I came in the seminary, and my parish was 1 year old too, and then it was a little church, and then towards my ordination, like 5 years before, there was a big renovation, and then I was ordained there. I was the first when it stood up very big and beautiful. Like I felt like I was the fruit of becoming a parish, and I was the first to be ordained in that parish. So I really felt like, you see how the Lord works, how He gave fruit to the labors of the people. I mean, their spirituality, how it bears fruit also in having one to become ordained in that parish.
And that's what forms priests in the midst of those of the faithful. You know, you were the first fruits, and I'm sure many other young men watched that and were inspired to be open to God's call. Have you had other vocations from your parish?
I mean, there have been other priests who became prior to me, but in as much as that parish was established, the time when it started, and then when I get ordained, and the time that the whole church was also rebuilt and it's beautiful, that was so coincidental. And I think it's always there's always something there, divine things that's behind it.
And that's the divine affirmation. I think that, you know, we may say something is coincidence, or is it providence? Mm-hmm. You know, coincidence really is when something happens and God really doesn't want us to know He did it. Mm-hmm. But providence is when He really touches your hand, touches your shoulder, and says, you are the fruit of this parish. And how beautiful that happens.
Yes, and you know, I remember then when we were able to send help when there was an earthquake and it devastated the church. How beautiful also it is that I am able to give through my presence here, and we were able to send gifts to the parish, and they were so thankful. And it feels like the gift that I was in that church went to there in America, and then when something happened, this gift was able to also become to send something for them to stand up again.
See, and that is beautiful. And Father, this is why I love you so much as a brother priest, is that your perspective and openness to see God's will in the things that happen allows us to remember that He is directing us, and our job is to follow Him. And a lot of people would miss out on those, but you're teaching me to remember that, especially as we're operating in safe mode. It's a struggle, but yet I keep trying to look beyond what we're doing, just as you're telling us, so that we're going to give something different. Today our conversation that we're sharing probably wouldn't have happened, if we weren't in safe mode. So you began to operate in safe mode of your sacred orders of priesthood in your diocese, and you were comfortable in the reality of serving your people, among your people. And what were some of the assignments the bishop gave you in your first years as a priest while you were in the Philippines?
When I was a deacon, I assisted the bishop. That was the time when he was elected as the CBCP president, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. And I was with him whenever he goes across the country. And some of those, he would help me. He would ask my help in his writings. And it's very beautiful because he also mentored me. When he gave me these assignments, please write this, and then we will send this to these people, particular people. And he mentored me also how to address people
And to be a shepherd.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was when I was deacon, and I was 2 years with him. That's why he said, okay, could you also be assigned in the chancery. That's where I got my background in being a vice chancellor. And then, I really wanted to be in the parish. He could sense that. So, I think 7 months, 1 year and 7 months of my priesthood, he gave me a parish to administer. And that parish was a new parish. So I'm like, this is my new parish. This is new, and I am new because I'm still like one year and 7 months in my priesthood. And we journeyed together, and I had so many things learned in that parish. And the most beautiful thing in that experience was, like here, when I came here, the people are always supportive and loving, and there are flaws, faults, but they can forgive you, and then they will help you become better.
That is the beauty of, as a young priest, being nurtured by your people as you nurture them, and even now, every day, so many messages that we've received during this time of operating in safe mode. How many emails and how many cards, and people saying we're praying for Father Roniel and you, and you feel that,
Yes.
and that is why celibacy isn't a lonely state of life, because our intimacy with Christ spills over into His people, and they attribute their growth back to us, and we really do become a family. So.
And I could remember our bishop would always tell us that the people are the gift to us because they will also form us.
Right.
It's not just we forming the people, but actually the people are polishing us also to become transfigured into the good shepherd that Jesus is.
And that's our whole ministry is to be the good shepherd. And if we don't realize they're forming us in and polishing us to be that, then we're just, egomaniacs. We're just there for ourselves, and the people polish us, and that is why we're priests, and that's the ministry that Christ has called us to. So, it is. I'm seeing and watching you be polished by our people. Not that you were unpolished, but by our culture and by the faces that you see in the pews here and the smiles that you see, and the people just incredibly love the fact that you're their priest here. They know that you're on loan, but they love you, and they're so glad that you're here. So you had to leave the Philippines and come here, and I understand you didn't request to come to the United States.
Yes, it just came when one time, it was during our retreat, and when I arrived at the place, the bishop told me,
That's never good, huh? Well, it's always going to be something of a challenge when they do this, right there.
And then he said, do you want to bigger your world? Like, I mean, I've been in the diocese, and I did not even have time to, I mean, an opportunity to go out of the country.
Mhm.
So, like, can you, will you accept if I will say you will be sent to a diocese because they are in need of help? They're having a shortage of priests, and they need our help. Would you help? So that's the main motivation why I came here. Really, it's about helping a diocese that is in need of the priests because of shortage.
And certainly you became a missionary to our diocese, and you certainly not only are helping us fill those gaps where one priest can't do the work. I've had a lot of help as a pastor with other priests in the past, but I've never had another pastor be pastor with me, and that's what you are. And I think that your help, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. You're coming here, the help you have brought is that formation, is your grandmother, pointing this out to you, is the people of your parish, and the work that you did with your bishop and your other assignments. So, well, thank you, Father, for sharing with us.
Thank you, Father John.
Before we leave, I just wanted to ask, how's your family at home during this COVID-19? How are they surviving it, and is everybody well?
Yeah, my mother, I melt really when my mother told me one time, please come home, and she was crying and said, it doesn't make sense if I go home, because I would still be quarantined in Manila, and then it will be 1 month, and after 1 month I'll be back here, and I could not even come to our place.
You couldn't even get to see her anyways.
Yes, so that's I presented her the odds, the difficulty, and she doesn't want to understand that.
She loves and misses her son, I'm sure.
Yeah, she was. That's why whenever after the mass in our place, she would always hug the priest there, because she would tell her, I miss my son. So that's what she does when I come home. She always hugs me, and that's what she did with the priest there. And good thing the priest was so understanding too.
Well, when we're finished, when you're done serving us the 5 years that you're serving us, and I know you're going to go home again. You go home in the summer. Hopefully we'll be able to travel again, and you'll be able to go home. Perhaps when you go home the next time, you hug your mother, and you say to your mother, this is a hug from Father John, and then you hug her again and say, this is a hug from every parishioner, because she needs to know how much the sacrifice that she's making is truly bearing fruit with us too. So. Well, thank you so much, Father, for sharing with us. Father's going to be with us on a couple of episodes as we move forward. He does so well from that chair, so I can take a break. I'm sorry I didn't dress up for this occasion. I'm
Thank you, Father John, for your kindness.
Yes. So once again, remember that it's in times like this that saints are forged, and so let us all become saints, and let us stay safe in the Lord. And thanks again, Father.
You're welcome, and thank you, Father John.